The man I'm about to introduce is one of the most provoking and quotable people in marketing. Great content happens when the people making it are enjoying it. Cowardice is crippling to any content marketing program. Tone of voice can make your message 10 times, maybe even 100 times more convincing. And here to tell us all about mastering tone of voice and content marketing, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Doug Kessler.
Great, thanks. Raise their expectations on me. Before I start, could you guys just wave for my kid? She always says, "What's so scary about talking to people?" It's like, that's what's so scary about talking to people. Okay, I'm Doug Kessler. I'll be talking about mastering tone of voice today. I'll try to stay as close to the mic as I can. This may not be the most fun session, but it will definitely be the most important one here. Everybody out there, much as I love the sponsors and the exhibitors, they're going to tweak your conversion rates 16%, 2%, 3%, 30%. This is doubling, tripling stuff. If you get this right, your budget is double or triple or beyond, without doubt. I'm convinced of that. So mastering tone of voice, that's me, that's my Twitter handle if you're into that kind of thing. Or slam dunking how you say stuff would be another way to say that. Like I say, it's my favorite subject because I think it's under-attended to by marketers. Everyone thinks they do it. So some things are ignored by marketers because they don't believe it, they don't know about it. This is different. Everyone knows about it. Everyone thinks they believe in it. Everyone's got a piece of paper somewhere in their marketing department talking about tone of voice, right? But no one actually pays attention to it. So that's what this session's all about. If I convince you of one thing today, it's to take this thing seriously and see what can happen. First, a definition. Tone of voice, very simply, is how you say what you say. So if you take out all the content part of it, the what you're trying to cram down people's ear holes, what's left, the how, is what we're talking about. It's another way to think of it is the user experience of content. So if a piece of content is an app designed to get people to do something or think a different way, if you thought of it as an app, you would think about its user experience quite carefully, its design and its voice. So think about content that way, and it's really a UX issue. It's a user experience issue. The only formula I really think you need to take away from this, and this one is important, I would definitely remember this one if nothing else. Write this sucker down, tweet this sucker. This is the whole bottom line. Story times voice equals impact. So that's what you're saying, your story, times how you say it is the impact you're going to make. The important part of this formula is the multiplication sign, right? So if either of these two things is 0, the impact is 0 too. You can have the best story in the world, great story. If you bury it in a shitty old white paper, nobody's going to discover it, nobody's going to care. And you can have an amazing style, but if it's empty and there's no story there at all, you'll get a little attention for a little while, but that's not going to make any impact either. But if you get both of these things right, what you say, really good story, compelling story told in a clear, compelling voice, you're on to a winner. The great brands, they all know this. You know, the Apples, the Nikes, the Jack Daniels. These are fantastic brands with really distinctive, clear voices, right? And people say, well, you know, they're great brands that happen to have really nice voices. I don't think it's that way at all. I think they're great brands because they have these clear, compelling, crystal voices. And in our world, the best marketing bloggers and leaders and thought leaders also know all about voice. So Ann Handley of Marketing Profs, Joe Chernow of Hubspot, Brian Clark, copy blogger. These are guys I follow. They're the top of their industry. Actually, the top of my industry, who am I kidding? Top of our industry, because they're not just smart. They're very, very smart, but there's a lot of smart people out there. They're also smart with a really distinctive voice. You know it's them when they're writing, when they're talking. This works because, essentially, it works because of how we work. And this is the science bit, right? So we are a social animal. We evolved to survive. The only way that humans can survive is through cooperation, right? Like lions and tigers don't need to know this shit. People really do have to get very, very good at reading the social signals that other people are sending out. That's a survival issue for human beings. That's not a nice to have, right? So the signals that tell you the character of the person you're confronting or talking to or speaking with, and the intention of that person, those signals are hugely important to human beings. And so we've grown brains that are great at picking up those signals. And part of the stance of this talk today is to think of content as meeting someone for the first time. You're sending your content out there to represent you like a person to talk to other people, right? And the signals it sends out will be attended to. They will be read by the consumer of your content. They will be working hard to interpret your character and your intentions between the lines of what you say. Unfortunately, this single biggest opportunity facing every content marketer tends to be hidden in the afterthought at the bottom of a content strategy, if it's in there at all. People aren't looking at this at all, and it's a major, major impact on success. Because marketers and content marketers tend to be obsessed with the explicit. You think about all the meetings you have before an ebook goes live. How many people are taking apart every single line for its content? For what is its, are we saying enough? Should we cram this benefit in here and cram that other benefit in there? And very little attention to the other side of the equation. How are we saying what we're saying? How is it that if we do cram that benefit into that sentence, we think we've done something more by adding a benefit, we've actually done something less by subtracting the voice from that sentence, by killing the voice, by reducing its impact. Dogs know this. The bark is what you say. The heady aroma is everything else. That is horrifically gross. I'm really sorry. I don't know why I included that slide. Yesterday it seemed like a good idea. More scientific way to put this. See how scientific that is? It's a chart. Impact over time, right? So two lines. The orange one, what we learn about the topic. It does make an impact, and it lasts a little while, then it dies off, right? What we learn about the communicator, the brand or the person behind it, makes a much greater impact, and it lasts much longer than the stuff you hope, and you spend so much time hoping will make its impact. And that's not to say content doesn't make an impact. Of course it does. I think Maya Angelou said something like, you forget what somebody told you, but you never forget how they made you feel. That's what this is about. This is about the message that's going on in parallel to the message you think you're giving. And that's why I think tone of voice is the most important content in your content. Not a flavor. It's not something you sprinkle on when you're done with figuring out what you want to say. It's actually the content itself. Tone of voice is content. This guy, every American knows him. He's Vince from ShamWow commercials. He sells these chamois cloths, they call them over there. And, every 10 minutes he's on there shouting about the product. When he's doing his selling, he's got all these different things. Facial expression, his eyes, in his voice he's got pitch and tone and speed and volume, what he wears, his body language, his gestures. All of this stuff is at his disposal. And when we're listening to Vince and anyone else, we're picking up all of that all the time. Processing. But in content, especially written content, text-based, which is 90% of the content we're talking about, all we have is tone of voice. All those channels for sending and receiving are crammed down into this one little fiber optic filament, which is our tone of voice. And because of that, it's an isolated, narrow channel. It becomes disproportionately powerful. So people reading your content are using all that social processing power, and they're using it on one little element, which is your tone of voice, which isn't really guided by that many variables. It's a big deal. So, a little bit of impact change in that filament, in that channel, makes a big impact on the effect of your content. So this talk's really about how to manage tone of voice. Looking at the audience, I figure you guys are more content marketers, agency side, brand side, and less actual writers. Some of you may be, but there's plenty of stuff out there about writing with a great voice. And one of my favorites is Ann Handley's book, Everybody Writes. Really, really good. If you haven't read it, I do recommend it. But this is more about how to manage tone of voice in your brand or in your agency or for your clients. How to get it out of the writers you work with, essentially. And what I want to do is just run through 10 tips for managing tone of voice. And the first thing about managing tone of voice is to manage it, is just to actively decide that this is a strategic asset that we can't leave to chance. We can't just give briefs out there to writers and hope they come back with something that is on voice. You know, it may be good writing, but its likelihood of being on your voice is quite low. That means make it someone's job. Not a full-time job. I don't think even the biggest company in the world needs to have somebody full-time on tone of voice, but somebody needs to have it on their job description that says, yeah, that's going to be me. I'm going to look after that. The good news is the people who are really good at this, they're not really traffic cop types like, you know, brand police tend to be, can't do this, can't do that, can't do this, can't do that. Actually, in voice, it's really the opposite. The best are not cops. They're much more like a coach to the writers and editors and content creators in your team. So, because so many writers default to bland, corporate, middle kind of language, right? A good tone of voice coach will pull them out of that and say, come on, get out there where we need you to be. Talk like we want to talk. So actually, it's a much more fun job than it sounds like. Then you have to train it in. Once you've got it and you know it, you got to tell people about it. It's not a big deal. You got to tell your new hires, whether they're writers or not. You've definitely got to tell every writer who's ever going to write for the brand, every editor who's going to judge a piece and review it, every approver, so senior managers who are going to be looking at your stuff and deciding, is this good or not? They're not going to sit in on your tone of voice training, but they need to buy into your tone of voice strategy and decisions ahead of time. Because if you have to have that fight every single time you bring a piece to their desk, it's a pain in the ass. You really need them to buy into, this is how we talk, right? And if they buy into that, then you'll have an easier time with it. That's the first tip. Second tip, decide who you are. So this really isn't so much about just decide how you're going to say stuff. It really is, when you're deciding on tone of voice, you're deciding who you are as a brand. One of my favorite tone of voice guides, University of Leeds, does it. And this is a diagram, maybe hard to read. I'll read you the key bits if I get my glasses out. And this is connecting tone of voice to the core of the brand. So the middle is their vision to be consistently in the top 50 in the world rankings, 5th in the UK. Then there's the big idea to provoke a collaborative approach to learning, blah, blah, blah. Then there's our principles, collaboration, challenging, generosity, excellence. That's that second to last ring. Most people stop there and they think, all right, give that to some writers. But if you're a writer, what are you going to do with excellence or collaboration? It's not going to help you very much. You really need that personality layer, which is the next one, the tone of voice layer. Straightforward, friendly, imaginative, confident. What I like about this is just that they put it on the same map with their brand values and their core mission and all that stuff, so that you know that it comes from that. Your voice needs to come from who you are. It can't be laid on after. For us, we're a B2B content marketing agency specializing in tech, but we don't work very well with all marketers. We work well with a certain kind of marketer. You know? We work brilliantly with confident, ambitious marketers who want to take a stand on an issue, disrupt a market, right? And if the timid corporate types aren't going to like us very much, we're not going to like them. So this is who we are. And so our content has to capture that in our tone of voice. So we put out content like CRAP, the slide deck, why the single biggest threat to content marketing is content marketing, or the other C word, what makes great content marketing great. And we try to pack our voice into that and make sure it reflects who we are as a company, because we want to attract like-minded marketers and, frankly, alienate the timid. You know, we want to do that in our marketing too. It's an important part. We're small. We can't work with everybody. We need to have a good match, right, with our clients. And so that's how, for us, tone of voice is not a cool thing we play with. It's totally coming from who we believe we are, what we're good at, what we want to be when we grow up. All of that is totally woven in with our tone of voice. Next one, use voice to differentiate. A lot of people use tone of voice to sound like everyone else. They don't set out to do it, but they kind of do. In their heart, they're thinking, what do marketers in our world sound like? Let's sound like that. It's just an instinct for marketers, because we grow up with marketing and we want to make marketing that sounds like marketing instead of the opposite. Case in point, we work with Sprint. They're a mobile operator in the US, competing against some big giants, right? Telecommunications, tough competitive market, and a market where everyone sounds the same. If you look at AT&T, and this is not to criticize them, this is just typical copy, not bad. Well, maybe it is. AT&T Enterprise Business provides networking, mobility, cloud, security, hosting, application management, unified communication. VPN, VoIP, and conferencing solutions for medium to large businesses. That's telco speak. That's just kind of how you do it. Sprint does all those things too, but it needed to use voice to differentiate. It's not as big as the other guys. And the homepage we did for them says, what do you come to work for? Most people don't just do it for the money, and we sure don't do it for the glory. We do it for each other. Watch the video. And there's a video about how tech can make your people enjoy their jobs better, and the strapline is for companies with people in them. And it's just, how do we break from the way people talk in our category instead of mimic it? That's at the brand level. Down at the solution level, Verizon says something like, work more collaboratively with integrated communications. I don't know why there's a capital C there. And this is typical telco speak. For us at solution level, again, we need voice to help us differentiate. We say empower your weirdos. Somehow you assembled a motley crew of completely amazing people. Let's let them do their jobs better, enjoy their work more, and stay on top of everything that matters. That's what Sprint Business Solutions are all about. Dig in. It's the same equivalent page as the one I just read you on the website. It's the introduction to our solutions. But the voice is very, very different, and we think it's going to give them an advantage. It's early days, but we believe that. And that's because voice can differentiate, can make you stand out of your market, not just stand in it. Next, you've got your voice, you know what you want to do. Capture your voice in a guide of some kind. Don't just let it float around there as received wisdom. I love this one, University of Leeds. Like I said, it's online, so if you Google it, you'll see it. I think they do a great job. Another one I like is the British Council, which does theirs as a website instead of a PDF. Just runs through all the things you really need to know. I think they do a good job. First rule of tone of voice guides. Write it in your tone of voice. It's amazing to me how often I'll read a tone of voice guide that talks about energy and passion and is written in this deadening, horrible corporate speak of lawyers and stuff. You know, the first rule, is write the tone of, your best writer should be writing your tone of voice guide, the one who gets voice best. It will be a demo of your tone of voice. Second rule of tone of voice guides, lots of examples. I mean, it's good to describe your tone of voice, but descriptive words about things like voice, they can be a bit subjective, and people take away different things from them, right? So examples really help. This is one from MailChimp. Again, these guys do a terrific job at a tone of voice guide, which they've put online. I think it's called voiceandtone.com. This is a page describing a success message in their software. And first they capture, what is the user feeling at this point in their software journey? And it says, woohoo, finished this week's campaign, now I can enjoy the weekend, and it captures some of their feelings on there, relief and pride and joy. And the copy is, fine piece of work, you totally deserve a raise. So what they've done is map this specific piece of copy to a specific moment in the journey, and to show a really good example of their voice. But you do need both positive and negative examples. I think it's really good to say this is not how we write. That really does help writers. This tone table by Gather Content, who are a group here in the UK who do some good work, they use these tone tables. It says your voice is, and for the value community driven, write like this. This is great, Monica, really practical suggestions, blah, blah, blah. Not like this. Your response has been noted and will be responded to. And then why, so positive, negative examples and why. Really simple to do and guides writers. As a writer who gets a lot of briefs, this kind of thing can be quite helpful. Okay, 5, choose 3 bass notes. So I like to think of tone of voice kind of like perfumes. You have bass notes and accents. And the bass notes are the core. They're the value stuff. They're the things, who are we? The personality that does not vary, right? And I like to recommend 3 bass notes. Don't go for 10 or 15. And one of them cannot be human. We're going to assume that you're targeting this species. If that's not the case, you can use human. But if it is, let's free one up. I said human camera, one of, yeah. So let's look at a brand totally built on tone of voice. So Innocent Drinks, good drinks, nice drinks, but fantastic tone of voice and a great brand. This is pack copy, okay? Clarification, the Boysenberry is a pure vegetarian berry. It does not contain boys. The Boysenberry is a hybrid of raspberries and blackberries. The person who named them probably had a good reason, or maybe he was just tired. Maybe it was 5 to 5 in the afternoon, he was very hungry, goes on from there. When you think about it, this is pack copy on quite a small package. That's precious real estate. They've given a big chunk of it to something that is essentially purely a voice expression. There's no actual content there. It's just fun. And that's a really important part of them. So for me, when I reverse engineer their base notes, I would say they're simple, they're friendly, and they're silly. Their silliness is a really important part of their voice. They're playing with the conventions of marketing. So in that one, they were playing with the conventions of package copy. What is it supposed to do, and how do we play against that? One thing I always do, if I'm looking at a brand's tone of voice and admiring it, or just want to check out how they build it, I go to their careers page, because who they hire is so important to what a company is. That's kind of where tone is going to happen. It's the people you hire. And so I always look at what are they doing on that page. And when I go to Innocence, we want to create a business we can be proud of. So to make this happen, we need brilliant people who inspire and deliver change all around them. That's why we're always looking for talented, ambitious, and altruistic folks to come and join us. That's a voice that is innocence, and the keywords like a business we can be proud of, brilliant people, deliver change, altruistic folks. That's stuff that you would expect on an innocent careers page and maybe not another. Moving from consumer into B2B, a brand that's also got a great voice is Hubspot. Kieran was here this morning. I think he might even be toward the back today. Kieran Flanagan. Hubspot has a terrific voice. And for me, I would say its base notes are enthusiastic, positive, and helpful. I mean, enthusiastic, these guys are like manically positive. It's almost a cult. I've known families who will hire someone to go kidnap someone outside of HubSpot just to get them back into the family fold. It's a cult of intense positivity and helpfulness. Let's look at their hiring page. Choose your adventure. Each team at HubSpot features its own unique blend of passion, personality, and panache. Choose the one that most feels like home. So some great voice words in there. Choose your adventure, passion, personality, panache, feels like home. This is a real voice going on here, and they're using it in a place you might not expect it. Jumping over to the luxury market. I'm a real student of luxury tone of voice, mainly because it creeps me out, frankly. But it is super important to luxury brands that they get their voice right. Unfortunately, a lot of it just comes out as just a bit smarmy. Maybe I'm not the target audience. But here's a Patek Philippe. You never actually own a Patek Philippe. You merely look after it for the next generation. Just soaked in elitism. And I always want to go into a shop and take one of the watches and say, I don't want to buy it. I just want to look after it for the next generation and walk out and see if that works. But basically, it's one of the great luxury lines, and it's so packed with all of their brand values. So for me, those would be elegance, tradition, and elitism. Unashamed elitism. They're not scared of that. Their jobs page. We encourage people with skills inherent to our area of expertise to submit their application as follows. It's very, very Swiss, isn't it? I was in Switzerland on a ski trip, and I went in to pay for petrol, and the guy was vacuuming the bread. And I did kind of a double take and said, "Are you vacuuming bread?" He went, "There are crumbs in that." So it bothered the hell out of him that there were crumbs under the bread. Sorry if I'm insulting Swiss people, but this is what you'd expect from a Swiss company's site. Going even further in the elitism. Oh no, shit, 5 minutes. All right, we're gonna do Donald Trump. Pretension, superficiality, and narcissism. Trump, to maintain a venal empire like the Trump Hotel collection, you need a certain kind of person to join the company. You need assholes, basically. And this is how you attract them. Passion, drive, enthusiasm. The 3 pillars of Donald J. Trump's success. Goes on from there. If you're the top of your game, then you'll be on our team and we'll expect your best. They know what they're doing here. They're controlling their voice. Add accents. So we talked about base notes. What I do with accents is that's when you're pivoting for different situations and contexts, right? You're the same person when you talk to your bank manager, your kids, your wife, but you have a different voice, I hope, when you talk to them all. And so with accents that adapt, I like to do these 2 ends of a pole, of a spectrum, and decide where you are on it. So you choose your own poles, but safe, trusted, angry, disruptive, passionate, reserved. You do these pairs and decide where you fall there. And then you flex based on that for things like the audience you're talking to, the medium you're in, the situation you're in. So Jack Daniels has a great distinctive voice, But if they had an affinity credit card, which I think they do have, and they rejected you, they wouldn't say, well, would you look at that? Your application for credit card has been flat out denied. Y'all come back when you got more money, we'll be here. It's on voice, but they didn't flex it for the situation there, you know. Okay, going for consistent variety is what that's all about. Not lockstep consistency, but consistent variety. Same personality, slightly different voice or tone for each situation. Craft your microcopy. I love this. Microcopy is that tiny stuff that you think nobody reads at all. It's the error messages. It's the stuff in an e-commerce path that helps you through it. That stuff nobody looks at for voice, but is a great place to smuggle your voice in. I'll just do the one example. Chubby's does shorts in America. Mailing list awesomeness. Talk to an actual human. Share if you hate pants. Pants or trousers over there. And my favorite CTA button of all time, boom shakalaka laka. It's pretty cool. So some more of that. I'm going to zip through the microcopy, but it's a great place to smuggle your tone of voice because people don't expect it there. Beware of lawyers is a big one. Lawyers murder tone of voice. We need their advice. We don't need them to write our copy. Another luxury site, Ritz-Carlton. This is all the luxury talk you'd expect. Imagine a home not only blah, 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 by sophisticated blah, 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 blah. You know, same stuff you'd expect. But then you go to one of their residences. Let's say I want to look at their Baltimore residence. And before I get there, I have to click yes and accept this thing. And it says by clicking on the yes button, you'll be leaving the Ritz-Carlton website. The site to which you'll be transferred is not part of Ritz-Carlton, and we have nothing basically saying all that ass kissing copy we told you about, how much we love you. We haven't even done the due diligence that our partners are honest and delivering a quality product. So we have to put this in between and when you click to protect us from suing us from our partners. I mean, that's what I call a tone of voice fail. And it happened because lawyers got involved, you know. If I were a lawyer, I'd say, go make sure nobody's cheating your customers under your name. And then you don't have to put a thing like that in there, right? Embrace good jargon, I think, is a really good one. People think no jargon is, you see in a lot of tone of voice guides, no jargon. Good jargon, it's like cholesterol. There's good jargon, there's bad jargon. Good jargon tells someone, I'm an insider, I'm in your world. It's precise, it signals these are my people. If I'm selling to you guys and use the word CRM, that doesn't offend, that doesn't feel like jargon, you know what it is. To not use it might say this person doesn't really know what world we're in, so you need some. But bad jargon is lazy, signals you don't know what you're talking about, and even worse, bad jargon's usually there to conceal something. So when there was this big news article recently about Twitter, how many of the Twitter followers are actually bots, automated, and they came out with this one. Approximately 8.5% of all active users use third-party applications that may have automatically contacted our servers for regular updates without any discernible additional user-initiated action. What the hell does that mean? They don't really want you to know. What that means is a bot, you know. So this is jargon used to obscure the message as opposed to clarify it. And that, of course, is bad jargon. 10th one, fire your good writers. So you're not going to get a great voice with good writers. You get a great voice with great writers. And most people just think, oh, he's our best writer, let's give him that one. And if he's not good enough, you gotta find better writers. You can't really give a good writer a guide and expect them to become great overnight. So I'll sum up the big 10 since I'm getting the big sign. See, wrap up. Oh, cool. All right. I could have slowed down. I could have done 2 more microcopies. But anyway, let me sum up for you. 10 tips. Actively manage your tone of voice. Don't just leave it to chance. Decide who you are before you decide what you're going to say or how you're going to say it, right? And if you haven't decided that, you've got a much deeper problem than tone of voice, right? You need to attend to that one. Use voice to differentiate. That's to jump out of a market, not just to jump into one. Do a great tone of voice guide with examples pro and con in your tone of voice. Choose 3 bass notes, stick to it, get people to agree, and then add some accents for the context. Craft your microcopy. It's a really nice place to flex the tone of voice muscle, and it's fun. Beware of lawyers, you know. Embrace good jargon. Don't run from it, but obviously run from the bad kind. And number 10, get really great writers. The best writers you possibly can will make a lot of this a lot easier. If you're trying to squeeze it out of someone who isn't quite got a voice themselves, that's going to be hard. So I hope you go out there like Vince and your content flies off the shelves like ShamWows in America. Thank you very much.